Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of Speaking Steagles, the premier Pennsylvania pro football podcast. I am Nick Vete, joined as always by Ricardo Martinez-Paz. We've got another episode coming at you. Steelers were in action this week. Eagles on their bye week. Still had the other three NFC East teams going. So we are breaking it down, diving into it. And of course, big this week, Steelers and the Eagles are actually squaring off as we're in week 8 of the season here, and these two teams, their schedules align, and we're getting a Pennsylvania showdown, so we'll dive into that as well. Ricardo, how you doing today, bro?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. Lot going on right now, a lot going on with schoolwork and just being busy, and obviously with all my sports teams not really doing particularly well, it just drags things down a little bit. But I'm in good spirits. I'm happy. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
I'll say one thing. Bryce Harper, man, dude. Oh my God, the Phillies.
It's
funny of teams to make it.
It's funny. Could you imagine if I'm a Yankees fan, even though Steelers, Yankees, also a Penguins and Knicks fans. It's kind of bizarre where my fandom stems. But if we had gotten Yankees to beat the Astros in the World Series, it would have been both of our baseball teams going up against each other in the World Series the same weekend that our two football teams are going up against each other in the NFL season. So it didn't work out that way, of course, because the Yankees got swept. But not speaking Yankees, so we'll save that discussion for another day.
Yeah.
That being said, we do have some football that we got to get into here, particularly with the Steelers because they were playing this week. We'll start out with them.
Yeah.
And not a lot of positive. I take it back. Not a lot of positive, but not all negative to take away from this game.
Yeah.
I guess the main negative, obviously, is you lose another game. You now drop to 2-5. You're even further out of the wild card hunt, further out of the division race. And it sucks because this is a game that the Steelers could have won. It was a game that I'll get into this as one of my other takeaways, but it's a game that was certainly within striking distance that they certainly could have won. And for my first takeaway here from this game, and it's the main reason they lost. When you look at the box score, you look at the stats, both individual and team, the Steelers were perfectly in this game. The one area where they truly got beat was the turnover battle. That's where the Steelers really lost this game. Obviously, Kenny Pickett threw 3 interceptions. His final 2 were pretty rough, and the Steelers had no takeaways. And you look back at this game, Levi Wallace, I believe, had 2 dropped interceptions. Terrell Edmonds, I think, had a dropped interceptions. Yeah, Levi Wallace had 1 in the fourth quarter that was really bad. And I think he had one that was tipped. And it was like he tipped it to himself and couldn't corral it. I'm pretty sure Terrell Edmonds had one that went through his hands that he was diving for. And I mean, that's right there. Those are 3 potential turnovers the Steelers could have had that they couldn't capitalize on. And you flip the script and you look at the Dolphins, and they were able to come away with 3 turnovers. And that to me was one of the big differences in this game. I mean, you look up and down the rest of the stats. The Steelers won the time of possession by a few minutes. Penalties were even. Both teams had 5 penalties. Rushing yards, 95 to 111 was pretty even. Passing yards, 246 to 261 was pretty even. Both teams were the exact same on third down, 4 for 14. I mean, first downs, 19 to 17. So you just look up and down at what the difference was here. And, that's really what it comes down with. And it sucks. It really does. The fact that the Steelers had the opportunity, and I'm going to get into the offense in a second here, but the Steelers had a chance to kind of turn the tide and change things and win this game, late in the fourth quarter. If you look at the fourth quarter specifically, there was opportunities here. The Steelers had 3 drives in the fourth quarter with a chance to take the lead down 6 points. They went 3 and out. Interception. I mean, that's brutal right there when the offense can't, 1, you can't move the ball, and 2, the turnovers are coming. Now, I will say, part of it's on, Kenny Pickett to a certain degree. I mean, especially his last interception.
Yeah.
He had open space in front of him. He could have picked up the ball, gotten the team into the red zone. You still probably would have had 30 seconds to run a couple plays from within the red zone. But, obviously he makes the rookie mistake, which is going to be part of it when you have a rookie quarterback there. And he throws the interception, which Deontay Johnson really had no chance on. And Noah Igbenogany came away with the turnover that sealed the game. But overall, I felt that the turnover battle was one of the key spots where the Steelers just got beat and was a reason that they ended up losing this game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the defense sort of kept them in. Yeah, they allowed, 10 points the first 2 drives or so, but then they sort of settled in. And I mean, I'll give you like the second half stats. The Miami drives, turnover on downs, punt, 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 punt. That's literally like what more can you ask for? Obviously, other than the missed opportunities on turnovers, but overall they held up their own and really kept the
Yeah,
Steelers alive.
I mean, yeah, the defense played fantastic in this game, and that was going to be my second takeaway. And the only reason that I was harping on the turnovers is really because when you have an offense that's struggling like this, and you have the opportunity for interceptions in your hand, I mean, it's big to potentially come away with those and
Yeah,
manufacture turnovers and put your offense in a favorable position when you know that they can't move the ball and they haven't been able to move the ball, really, even stemming back to the end of last season.
yeah.
So it's frustrating, but yeah, no, I mean that's my second takeaway is that this defense played really well. They played with a lot of heart, was how I put it. 0
Mhm.
points in the second half, like you mentioned. Only 3 points after the first quarter, and you know three of those Dolphins drives. Yes, they scored the touchdown on the opening drive, but then following that up, they marched down the field again, get into field goal range, but the Steelers hold them. The defense held them to 3 points. They did it again late in the second half where they drove down into Steelers territory. They were able to get a stop and hold them to a field goal. And then really, one of the biggest points of the game, in my opinion, was in the third quarter. I don't remember how much time was left in the third quarter, but the Dolphins were marching down the field again. They did a good job of stringing drives together. At certain points, their offense looked really favorable. I know you just ran through, kind of their possession by possession, and there was a lot of punts and turnovers on downs. But one of the big turnover on downs was when they marched down the field. We're in the Steelers' red zone, and the Steelers came away with a stop in the backfield for no gain on third down, and then they
Yeah.
blew up the line of scrimmage on fourth down on back-to-back plays. And you saw Cam Hayward fired up. You saw the defense make a stop in the fourth quarter, and Minkah Fitzpatrick ripped his helmet off and kind of shouted, let's go, like fired up about it. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. This defense played with heart, and I thought up and down, you just saw a lot of energy. I felt like Devin Bush played with a lot of energy. Miles Jack, who I'll get to in a little bit, he played with a lot of energy. And obviously, Cam Hayward, Fitzpatrick, who I just brought up, Larry Ogunjobi, all those guys were playing with a lot of energy, a lot of passion. And it just sucks when they play so well. And really, making the Dolphins go 4 for 14 on third down when they looked so good on their first opening drive, it was really impressive to see them kind of lock in and keep the defense in the game, all throughout.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough to see. I mean, when one unit's playing pretty well and the other just can't, carry their own weight, really. But I mean, with Kenny Pickett, yeah, like he's still young. Obviously, he's got a lot of growing to do. It's just, yeah, those last two interceptions he threw were not good.
Not good.
They were. I don't know. Those were. I mean, they were avoidable, yes, but again, rookie mistakes. He's still learning. Not going to say
the second one. The second interception I felt like was that is if you open up a dictionary definition of rookie quarterback interception, that's the one you'd see where it's just a bad read. He misread it, and that'll come with experience and time. He'll realize, hey, that's not actually open. It may be open in college. That's a throw that's not open in the NFL. The second one, or excuse me, the last interception was bad all around. Again, I'll blame the rookie mistake there because with his mobility and how much time was left on the clock, I believe when he was throwing the ball, there was still like 40 seconds left. He could have scrambled for the first down. It was like, I believe there was only like 3 or 4 yards ago. There was one defender pursuing him, but he could have easily picked up some yards and maybe even gotten out of bounds. But instead, he tried to make something happen, throwing a little bit of a jump ball to Deontay Johnson, and it just wasn't there. That's something he'll pick up in time. The first interception was kind of a wash because the receiver fell down.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, so I can't go crazy about the interceptions because when you put Kenny Pickett in there and you move off of Mitch Trubisky, that the rookie mistakes, the rookie interceptions are going to be there, and we saw it. And it sucks that it came at this time when you have a game within grasp, within winning, within a win.
Yeah, I mean, he's still. It's obviously not a question that he's better than Trubisky. Obviously, the offense plays better around him, but I can't remember who it was, which player that called Matt Canada out. I don't know if you saw that. It might have
during this game.
I think it was after the game. I might have been Chase Claypool or something. Yeah, I think someone. It might have been Chase Claypool that called him out or something on the offense struggling. I don't remember if. I think it was this week. I just don't remember.
I don't remember seeing anything, whether it was on social media or if he like actually verbally said something. But I know Mike Tomlin even said, like he's continually said he's open to change.
Yeah.
But Like, he's not making a change. And frankly, I don't blame him because it's like, what are you going to do? Like, who's going to call plays? Tomlin's not calling plays. All their best coaches really are on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Mike Sullivan, the quarterback's coach, it's like, all right, he's never really held like a real like substantial position in the NFL. So I think at this point, you just kind of ride with Canada and you hope things get better. And, unless things start to get really ugly, I'll also say this. We're also in the toughest stretch of the Steelers' schedule where I said a couple weeks ago, this team is going to lose games in here. And especially now that you're going to Kenny Pickett, he may not be ready for these teams and these defenses. And so, like, I'm not fully like jumping on him yet. I'm fully on board that Canada's gone come next season, but I just don't know, like, what are you replacing Canada with if you replace him now?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Which I think is what it comes down to. If you want to make a change, fine, all well and good, but don't expect leaps and bounds better to go to someone else in the offensive coaching staff to be your play caller moving forward. So that's kind of where I stand on that aspect. And then, my last takeaway, which I kind of hinted to it before, this is a game that's within striking distance, and the Steelers had the ball 3 times in the fourth quarter, like I said. 3 times in the fourth quarter, down 6 points, 3 and out, interception. And when you look back on this season, whatever the Steelers' final record is, if they make the playoffs, which, it's already not looking good, they're sitting second to last in the AFC for crying out loud. And, you look back on, potentially missing the playoffs and potentially being the first season under 500 in Mike Tomlin's coaching career. This type of a game against the Dolphins, the game against the Jets where you're up 10 in the fourth quarter, the game against the Patriots where you were there the whole game, the game against the Browns, which was definitely winnable, and the Browns just flat out, like beat you in the plays that you needed to win. Those are the games you're going to look back on and you're going to regret and say, damn, when we played the Bills and when we played some of these other good teams, when we play the Eagles coming up and we play these good teams that we have remaining on our schedule, and we inevitably lose because we're just flat out the worst team, you're going to regret not taking advantage of these teams. And these are the teams. The Dolphins might be a playoff team in the AFC, and playoff teams win these games, and the Steelers didn't win this game. And there's a lot that has to be blamed on the offense. Part of it's the rookie QB. Part of it's the play caller. Part of it's the offensive line. Part of it's not being able to run the ball. Part of it's the inability to convert on third down. And part of it may just be that the Dolphins and some of these other teams are just better than the Steelers with the personnel they have and the coaching staff they have and the offensive play caller that they have. And it's just frustrating because this game is right there and the Steelers just can't get it done.
Right. It does make a huge difference when you can't win these kinds of winnable games. But yeah, I mean, that's the NFL. Sometimes the teams, they just struggle to close out a game or, fail to take advantage of their opportunities. That's just how it happens.
And it's exactly that. It's exactly that is, you have these opportunities and your defense keeps you there, but you're unable to get it done. I want to ask you, from your outsider perspective, not an outside, but not a fan.
Right.
Does the Bucs win, the Steelers win over the Bucs 2 weeks ago, now kind of become a non-factor because of their loss to the Panthers? Like, how do we view that win against the Bucs? Obviously, you take every win you can in the NFL, but after the Bucs win, I was sitting there saying, hey, maybe this team is better than we thought, and they'll find ways to beat some teams. And if they can go into the bye week around 500, and maybe they beat the Dolphins, which obviously they didn't do, maybe we could still talk about them being a playoff team. But now we see their only 2 losses being against a division rival, first game of the year. First games of the year are always a little bit fluky, and against really a piss-poor Bucs team. How do we look at that win against the Bucs? And is this team even? Is there anything this team can even do at this point to make the playoffs?
That's tough. I'm not really sure because, I mean, you still got to play the Ravens, you still got to play the Browns, the Bengals. I mean, they're not. I mean, they're pretty like solid teams overall, and like
I mean the division. They're still they're 2-5. The Ravens and Bengals are tied for the top at 4-3. So you're 2 games back in the loss column. You still have yet to play the Ravens. Still have 1 more game against the Bengals, and maybe it's still up for grabs. I'd be feeling a lot better about it if they could have found a way to win this game and they were 3-4, 1 game behind the Bengals and Ravens versus 2-5, now tied for second worst record in the AFC.
Right. No, it definitely would look a lot different, but I mean, I'm not going to rule it out yet. It's still a little too early, I would say.
I think it's a conversation we can have when we get closer to Thanksgiving, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that. But I'd say the defense over the last couple weeks has been playing better than it did in the first like 3 games,
Yes.
I'd say.
No, I agree with that. I mean, you talk about how they played against Miami this week, against Buffalo. I mean, excuse me, against Tampa Bay this week. Certainly better than they played against Buffalo. Certainly better than blowing that fourth quarter lead against the Jets. So
Yeah.
they have looked better. We'll get into the Philadelphia game a little bit, but then they have a bye week where, hopefully they'll get a little bit healthier. Maybe TJ Watt comes back. And then
Yeah.
you have games where, you'll have games against the Saints, against the Colts, that'll be winnable. You have a rivalry game against the Bengals, that would be nice to win. Maybe you could talk about, winning a couple games and still being in the hunt for a wild card or maybe even the division once you get around Thanksgiving, which could be a time to reassess.
Yeah. I mean, I think wild card's still attainable. It's just a matter of, winning games really.
The wild card is definitely more in play just because you have the AFC is top heavy in the sense that you've got teams that are playing really well in the Bills and the Chiefs, and the Titans are a quiet 4-2. But, then you get into, some of the talk here where I talk about, potentially you could beat the Ravens and catch up to them, and the Bengals, you could potentially catch them. And the Chargers look like they're faltering. And the Patriots just had a bad loss. And, the Jets are still going to have some tough games ahead of them. They just lost Elijah Vera Tucker, their top tier offensive lineman. So there's the chance that you could potentially climb up that board a little bit, because I think that the wild card's going to be a little bit open in the AFC versus some of these top flight teams in the conference. So one last thing on this game before we transition over to the NFC East. My player of the game was I gave it to Miles Jack. I felt like the defense was just extremely spirited effort overall. And I was kind of between him and Cam Hayward, because I felt like Cam Hayward was really an emotional leader here. He had a couple big stops, but I mean, Miles Jack led the team in tackles with 10 total. He was in there on that stop on fourth down that I referenced earlier. That was a big time stop. And this is a guy that kind of under the radar has had a very good season. I believe he's top 15 in tackles in the NFL this year, kind of playing under the radar a little bit. And I feel that he really brings some energy to the Steelers defense. So I felt like it was a fitting week to give him kind of the recognition that I think he deserves, playing well at that inside linebacker position. So he was my player of the week for this game against the Dolphins. So that being said, the Eagles weren't a bye this week. So we kept an eye on what the Giants, Commanders, and Cowboys were doing in the NFC East. And why don't you break it down a little bit? I know you got some thoughts on what all those teams did, and we'll talk about kind of where the division at is and what we're looking going forward here as well.
Yeah, so I said last week on last week's episode, I thought the Cowboys would win, the Giants would win, the Commanders would lose. They all won. The Commanders, the most shocking one, really. I'll start with that one. Like, this is sort of, yes, NFC East, but also grand scheme of things, NFC. The Packers are struggling mightily, and they play the Bills too, like this coming week. So really, they're not doing themselves any favor, but it does help in terms of seeding for the playoffs. Talk about the Eagles being the number one seed, potentially. So really, on that front, things are looking good. The Bucs also lost. I don't know how they lost to the Panthers. Really, that was a pathetic loss. But yeah, Commanders defeating the Packers. I mean, the Packers are at a low point this time of the season. Things aren't going well for them. Commanders, it's kind of just caught the Packers at the best or their worst time kind of thing. So, Heineke was fine other than that ugly pick six. He did enough. Really the offense, the rushing attack is really what carried them. 166 rushing yards, 4.4 yards per game. Per attempt on the ground. So that really carried them. So that's for the Commanders. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
It's like good for the Commanders, but I see them as a bottom feeder in the division. Yeah. That like you said, it's one of those things where it's weird how they play. It's almost like they just play with like a different energy when Heineke's a quarterback, but I still just don't think they're good enough to really make much noise. And at this point, I guess I'll get into it in a second, but that's all I really have. And then once we kind of touch on where the Eagles are at and get into the Steelers-Eagles game, I'll bring up the point I was just thinking of. But the Commanders are an afterthought at this point in the division.
Yeah. So I guess moving on to the Giants, they won against the Jaguars. First time they've won in Jacksonville by a single yard, which, mind you, literally, I can't remember who else. Christian Kirk was stopped at the 1 yard line by two Giants defenders. Again, it just kind of shows the Giants defense stepping up in the key moments, because that easily could have been a loss, if they hadn't tackled him there. So I mean, the final score is 23-17. I was close to predicting that score, actually. I picked 23-20, so I was 3 points off. But in any case, yeah, Daniel Jones ran for over 100 yards. I was like, what is going on? Like, the Jaguars allowed 200, almost like 200 rushing yards, something like that. Like,
Daniel Jones is such a sneaky, under the radar mobile quarterback that people just don't give him the credit for, man. He's got some wheels on him, dude. When you get him out and you actually let him run a little bit, like, look at that. I mean, you just read the stat, over 100 yards rushing for Danny Dimes. I mean, it's not a joke, man. He's better when they let him be a dual threat quarterback. Obviously, he's no Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, but he's got a little mobility in him. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it makes it adds a little extra dimension to this offense. I mean, he even had 202 passing yards. He had a rushing TD, passing TD. I mean, that's.
Hey, I picked him up for my fantasy football team, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I bet he was pretty good last week in fantasy, but
I think the Giants too. They realize, hey, like, Daniel Jones is never going to be someone that just dots the ball all over the field to all these different wide receivers and can go through, 3 different reads and maneuver in the pocket if he needs to. You're better off saying, all right, we're going to get him, kind of on the move a little bit. We're going to get him, running some bootlegs, get him out on the run, let him throw on the run, scramble if he needs to, let him focus on one read. And if it's not there, let him try and make something happen with his legs. I think it's a better strategy for their offensive style and what they have at the quarterback position versus trying to, like, force him to be a pocket quarterback, which I think is what we saw with him the last couple of years. Look, Daniel Jones is no top-tier quarterback in the NFL, at least right now. But when you can find a way to be successful with him, the Giants have done that, and they're getting the most out of Daniel Jones, which, I mean, hey, look, that's gotten them to second in the NFC East at this point through, week what are we here? Week 7 of the season? Good for the Giants, man.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps when he didn't turn the ball over. So, he's just doing the right things at the moment.
Also very true.
Not shooting themselves in the foot, really, like last season. But moving on to the Cowboys. At first, I thought Dak looked a little rusty. Yeah, they won. The defense kind of carried them, though. He produced 5 turnovers against Jared Goff in the second half. I mean, that's kind of expected. The Lions aren't that good. They kind of fell off after getting blanked by the Patriots. I mean, didn't score a single point. Since then, they've just been going downhill. I don't know. There were some of Dak's throws. Maybe it's just a rust factor or something. There were some errant throws, forced passes into, double coverage that easily could have been picked. He kind of got away with a few of them. But he still finished with only 6 incompletions, 207 yards. He took 2 sacks. But I think both of those weren't really his fault. But really, again, it was the defense that showed up, and I mean, it was kind of expected that they produced that many turnovers against such a lowly team, really.
So which one of these 2 teams, the Giants or the Cowboys, do you feel is more of a threat at this point? Because we saw the Cowboys offense struggle a little bit. I know they got a tough defense. We're seeing the Giants play really well coached football, and we saw their offense perform pretty well this week. Wan'Dale Robinson is back in there now. They're starting to get some of their weapons back. Which one of them do you think is more of a threat to the Eagles in the division?
It's definitely still the Cowboys. I mean, Dak Prescott, for as rusty as he might have seemed Sunday, he's just going to get better recovering from that thumb injury. The defense is still going to be playing lights out, really, on one of the top 10 units in the league, arguably top 5. So they're the most complete team out of all the other ones in the NFC East.
That's fair. I agree with you for now on that, but I think if we continue to see the Giants kind of roll in this sense, I know they got a tough game this week against Seattle. Who would have thought we'd be saying Giants and Seattle,
Exactly.
tough game this week, week 8 of the season. One of them's a division leader. The other one's 6-1 and second in the NFC East.
Yeah.
I mean, those are statements I don't think anyone was expecting.
No, not at all.
But if we don't see Dak throw off this rust, I mean, we saw the underbelly of Cooper Rush, and we know Dak Prescott's a better quarterback. But I think there could seriously start to be some questions. We got to see the Cowboys offense kind of turn things around a little bit. Now, here's another thing that I kind of wanted to pose to you. We're sitting at this point in the season. I know that the Eagles schedule gets a little bit tougher once we get to Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
but we talk about the playoff standings right now. The Eagles are 6-0. The 7th seed in the NFC right now is the 3-3 Los Angeles Rams. I don't know if I see the Eagles getting 3 losses. Like, I almost feel like the Eagles have already, like, I know obviously mathematically they haven't yet, but in my mind, the Eagles are like already a playoff team. Like, I just don't see any world where the Eagles drop out and they're not a playoff team at this point.
Yeah, I kind of see that. I mean, at this point, it's a chase for the number one seed. That's how I see it. Like, it's theirs to lose almost because, like we said, the Rams 3-3, they suck. I mean, their offensive line is absolutely just wrecked by injuries. The Bucks, I don't know what's going on there. They're just struggling mightily too. Only put up 3 points against the Panthers last week. Packers, like we just said, I mean, also struggling offensively. Aaron Rodgers, what the F are we doing? Like, I mean, those 3 teams are absolute shambles right now. And then
Literally,
the NFC East, and it's like,
and the one team that I said would kind of scare me a little bit in a playoff game against the Eagles is the San Francisco 49ers, and they're banged up, and clearly they haven't played well of late. And Jimmy Garoppolo, we're clearly seeing why the 49ers wanted Trey Lance in there so bad. So, there's questions about what they can even do. So I'm totally with you. And the fact that the Vikings right now look like the second best team in the NFC at 5-1, and really, I don't even know how good they are, bro. Like, really, I feel like they're at best. Like, I feel like really in a normal year, we would be talking about them as like a fringe wild card team. But here we are saying like they're in race. Like, literally, I think like the Cowboys and the Giants, that NFC East division. Obviously, like, I still want to give it a few more weeks until we get to Thanksgiving to really kind of, write off the Rams and write off. Well, no, I've already kind of like wrote off the Rams a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but until I fully write off the Bucks, and especially the Packers are a team I'm not ready to write off yet, and the 49ers I'm not writing off yet either. Until we get to Thanksgiving, I'm not making the clear assumptions on those yet. But I'm definitely saying like it's gonna be disappointing for me if this Eagles team doesn't finish the season with like anything like at least like they gotta have at least like 13, 14 wins. Like anything more than like 3 losses to me with how the Eagles are playing right now in this NFC is a bit of a disappointment. And, I ask you a little bit. I kind of, a couple weeks ago I said the Steelers just aren't in that tier of like being able to beat a Buffalo or Kansas City. And, looking at it now, they're definitely a few tiers below that. But outside of Kansas City and Buffalo, those to me are like the 2 teams that are in a little bit of a tier above everybody else. They're a tier above the Titans. They're a tier above the Ravens. They're a tier above the Bengals. They're a tier above the Chargers. They're a tier above, the Vikings. I don't know if I said them yet. The Eagles, to me, I don't know if they're in that tier with the Chargers and the Ravens and the Bengals and the Titans. I think they're above that. But are they in that top tier? Are they in that tier with the Bills and the Chiefs? Because to me, the Bills and the Chiefs are the 2 clear-cut Super Bowl favorites to potentially go out and win it. I'm starting to think that the Eagles are in that tier too, man. I'm starting to think it's the 3 of them. And if they're not in that tier 1, then to me, they're in tier 1A. I'm not putting them in tier 2 with the Ravens and the Bengals and the Titans and all those other guys.
Yeah, I would definitely put them in 1A. I don't know if they're exactly. I mean, it's just Mahomes and Josh Allen are just so good. They're on their own tier by themselves. So that's a big part of why they're kind of in their own sort of realm. And the Eagles, I mean, they're a very complete team. The Bills are too. The Chiefs, I mean, they have their flaws, but they're still a really good offense.
Absolutely.
It's.
I mean, you even saw their. I mean, what they did in their rematch against the Bills. When those 2 teams squared off, the Chiefs' defense still looked pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I'm just. I'm not going to put the Eagles in that category yet. If they go into Thanksgiving, 11-0 or whatever the freaking record will be at that point, then I'll say okay, maybe, But as of now, I'm putting them in 1A. I think that's a safe thing to say.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on and preview. The Steelers-Eagles game a little bit, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So, I mean, hey, it's the Battle of Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
Let's actually start with this. Ricardo, if you had a guess right now, what is the lowest ticket Oh, this is on ESPN.com. I just pulled up the Eagles schedule, and it says what ticket prices go for. Don't look, don't cheat.
I'm not.
If you had to guess right now, tickets, what's the lowest you could get a ticket right now? I'm guessing it's through Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, or something that you could get. You could probably find them for cheaper on the secondary market, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the lowest going rate for Steelers at Eagles this Sunday?
Considering it's in Philly and they're 6-0, and I'll say 140. Is that too high?
267 is
Are you
the
serious?
cheapest ticket right now for Steelers Eagles. It's the most expensive ticket on the rest of the Eagles schedule. More expensive than the Packers coming to town. More expensive than more expensive than well, they're playing Dallas in Dallas on Christmas Eve, so those tickets are actually pretty cheap. But more expensive than the last game of the season against your rival New York Giants. $267. It's the only game over $200 a ticket. Listed on this ESPN site. It's wild, bro. I even thought about it a few weeks ago. Maybe we could try and make something happen where we go down to this game. It's outrageous that it's this expensive. It's got to be just like, I think it's part of it is because the Battle of Pennsylvania only happens, so many years. It's not like it's an every year thing. So
yeah, that might be it. Yeah, I mean, wow.
I guess it's a hot ticket. It's a hot ticket to get into the link this weekend.
I mean, the teams that were merged together, the Steagles, and that's obviously hence the name Speaking Steagles. But wow, I would not have expected that.
No, it's honestly a little bit outrageous. I don't know if there's a more expensive ticket in the regular season for any team out there. It's pretty wild. That being said, how bad are the Eagles going to beat the Steelers this week?
Well, the line. What's the line right now? I checked like Monday. It was 11-point favorites.
Let me double check. Let me double check. I think the line's coming down. Like the line was outrageous. Like it was obviously outrageous when the Steelers played the Bills and when the Steelers played the Bucks. The line was just wild. I think Vegas is realizing the Steelers defense can keep them in games. It's 10.5 right now that the Eagles are favored by. Which
okay.
Honestly, that's a pretty fair line.
Yeah. I was gonna say the Eagles might win by 10. I don't think they'll.
I'd be more likely to bet it on the Steelers covering that spread. 10's a big number for the Eagles to cover. It also is at home. If it was 9.5, I'd probably take the Eagles to cover. But yeah, that's a line. I mean, I'm staying away from it altogether this weekend. That is one that I definitely don't want to touch. I did get the Steelers this week though when they played the Dolphins. I got that line in a hit, so I was happy about that. I don't know, man. This is just I'm not expecting much at all for the Steelers in this week, bro. I'm really not. This is a game kind of like the Bills one where I just don't see a clear avenue for them to win. This is just kind of like I referenced before a little bit when I asked you about the tiers. This is just the Steelers are a tier too low to beat a tier 1A team in the Eagles. If the Eagles are a tier 1A team, the Steelers are a tier B-C team. And that's just not it's just not good enough to beat this team. Not the way that the Steelers offense is functioning, man. I mean, you talk about the Eagles, and they have a great defense, and I don't know how the Steelers offense is going to move the ball against them. And especially if these Eagles corners can kind of lock down the Steelers offensive weapons. I don't know if the Steelers can run the ball against this Eagles defensive front. I don't really see it happening. And thus I don't really see them moving the ball at all. And when you flip it over, this Eagles offense, you know what? It's one thing if the Steelers can kind of, hold them, keep them in check. But if we get the Eagles kind of exploding for, 14, 17, 20 points in a quarter, like we've seen them do at times, that may be enough that the Steelers just aren't getting. Yeah, maybe the Steelers can cover the spread, but I don't see the Steelers winning this game if the Eagles kind of explode for a stretch of game in here. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you see is there anything that concerns you about the Eagles this week going up against the Steelers?
Not necessarily. My only concern is like themselves. It's just if they've like figured out their second half struggles, not like, or at least if they can improve on it, as we've kind of been touching on this entire season. I mean, the best second quarter team in football, it's like plus 100 differential at this point. I don't know what it is, but and in the second half, they're one of the worst teams. So it's like, did they use this bye to like improve on like certain things, like perhaps some quick passes to start off their opening drive.
Which is it's just words. I mean, I know what you're talking about. They say that they've been working on these things. That's just words until we actually see it come to fruition in a game.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really my only concern. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any rust. It was only a week off.
No, I certainly don't think. And that's part of it, dude. The fact that they get the extra week to game plan for Pittsburgh, work on some of these things, get that extra week of rest. You see guys getting healthy. Lane Johnson claims that he's going to be back and ready to go this week, even though he's still in concussion protocol. And you're playing at home, man. Like, that's just not a formula for the Steelers to go into Philadelphia and win. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just not a game that I can expect the Steelers to win.
Yeah, I mean, the only way that the Steelers win really is if Jalen Hurts has like a horrible game. He just turns the ball over. Like the way I said, the worst game of the season. Like even that might not be enough. I don't know.
And that's what that was literally going to be my next point. You took the words out of my mouth. The only chance I think that the Steelers have is if they do a complete reversal of last week against the Dolphins and they are just manufacturing turnovers. I'm talking like 3 or 4 in this game, because if they don't turn the ball over, even if this Eagles offense doesn't erupt for a ton of points, like I just don't see how our offense is going to manufacture anything. They have yet to score over 20 points in a game. I don't even think they have yet to score. I don't even know when the last time dating back to last season was that they've scored over 20 points in a game. So unless the Steelers, defense can manufacture turnovers and maybe even get a score on defense or special teams, I just don't see a way that the Steelers win this game.
Yeah. I don't really have much more to add on that, but it's I don't want to say it's going to be a walk in the park. I don't think it's going to be like that easy, but it's certainly favorable for the Eagles.
I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park, but I just think there's too many things going in the Eagles' favor. Playing at home, extra time to rest and game plan on the bye. You're going up against the Steelers' offense that can't move the ball, and you've got a dynamic defense. Mm-hmm. It's just I just really don't see a way that this goes well for the Steelers. And again, this is that stretch of game for the Steelers where we said, like, hey, they're going to struggle. And, yeah, part of it is the fact that now you're going to go into your bye 2-6, and you're going to really have to rattle off some wins after the bye in order to stay above 500.
Right. I mean, and maybe during the bye they can work some more things out, and hopefully it works in their favor, and they can improve on, especially offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be their main area of focus. Any other things you're kind of looking out for in this game? I mean, obviously, I think we're both kind of on the same picture. The Eagles have a lot of the advantages here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe just keeping the receivers in check. I mean, I kind of like the matchup. Pickens, Claypool, Deontay Johnson against Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Vontae Maddox. I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty good trio against trio kind of matchup. But
I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, maybe if they can keep Kenny Pickett upright, give him some time to throw the ball, that'll be an interesting matchup to watch, is how the Eagles corners do against the Steelers wideouts. I certainly buy into that. What's your final score prediction? Let's do some final score predictions for this one.
Oh boy. I'm not going to go in the 30s. I will not say that. Stay a little humble on that one. Let's say 27. I feel like that's reasonable. 27. Oh, God, I said 10 points was a good margin. I don't know. 17 seems like a lot of points for the Steelers, but
I said 10.5 was the spread, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I got my prediction. If you want me to go first,
I'll say 26-13. That'll be my prediction.
26-13. I also have the Steelers scoring 13 points in this game, but I think the Steelers are going to cover the spread. It's going to be 13. It's going to be 13-23 in favor of the Eagles. So you have the Eagles covering the spread. I have the Steelers covering the spread.
Yeah.
I'm not betting on the spread one way or another. I'll tell you that right now.
Fair. That's absolutely fair.
Yeah. It's not gonna be pretty, but hey, we'll be back next week breaking it down one way or another. And I don't know, man. It's been a blast talking about it again. You got any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Go Phillies, fighting Phillies, yeah.
Go Phillies.
7, I don't
Yo,
know.
I'm also rooting for the Phillies this week because I hate the Houston Astros.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
of course.
Let's go, man. Good stuff. Hey, everybody out there, thank you for tuning in whenever you watch this. It's been a blast. We're obviously doing this every week, and we'll be breaking down next week's game as the Steelers and the Eagles battle it out this week. We'll be talking about what happens. We'll be analyzing about what happens. Maybe we get a Steelers shocker. Unlikely. The Eagles will probably dominate and win the game. Either way, we'll be back breaking it down, and we'll be talking all things Steelers and Eagles. So until then, thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye now.